They called Earth a backwater, a primitive little world tucked into the Orion Arm, barely acknowledged by the Galactic Council, a planet of soft-bellied politicians and starving colonies, tolerated for its mineral exports, but ignored when it came to matters of power. And for a long time, they were right. We had nothing, no fleets, no colonies worth defending, and no say in the so-called Galactic Order. When the Grail Syndicate raided our outer stations, the Council sent us a sternly worded memo, not a single escort ship. When our diplomats begged for protection, they were laughed out of the chambers. But Earth had one thing left: men like me. My name's Commander Jackson Cole. I'm no diplomat. I'm a soldier. Or was. Before they shut down Earth's fleet 20 years ago. They told us space war was a thing of the past, that peace would reign in the Council's shadow, but some of us knew better. We'd seen the vids of burned-out colonies. We'd read the black files no politician wanted to touch. And we remembered one thing every predator understands. When you're weak, you get eaten. That's why the project existed. Buried in the ice beneath Europa, under the old mining domes, a skeleton crew kept working. Engineers, pilots, veterans. No official records, no council authorization. Just an unspoken agreement between a handful of hard men and one ruthless billionaire who'd watched his family die on the colonies. He funded it. We built it piece by piece. Reactor cores smuggled from abandoned Mars sites. Armor plating scavenged from derelict freighters. Weapon systems coded in dark labs where no AI monitors could trace them. The Supercarrier took 15 years. We named her Leviathan. She was massive, nearly twice the length of a standard Council dreadnought. Cloaking systems that made her ghost the scanners. Railguns that could punch through planetary shields, and a core reactor so illegal even mentioning it in Council space carried a death sentence, and we kept her hidden because we knew if the Council or the syndicates found her, they'd wipe us out before we could even launch. That day came faster than we thought. A week ago, the Growl sent a fleet. Not a raid this time, an invasion. 3 battle cruisers, a dozen escorts. A clear message. Earth was going to be stripped for resources. Her people sold off as slaves. And the Council, they looked the other way again. I was called up by the project's old handler. One encrypted message. It's time. We dusted off the old launch protocols, pulled surviving veterans out of hiding, loaded the ship with everything we had. Leviathan wasn't pretty. Half of her systems were patched with outdated tech, and our crew was barely large enough to man her. But we were going up, and when we broke through the ice and hit the upper orbit, we saw the Growl fleet closing in. The bastards were broadcasting in the clear, laughing about how they'd shackled the Terran Council members first, then torch our cities from orbit. That's when Leviathan decloaked. I wish I could have seen their faces. First, the Growl fleet comms went dead silent. Then, their lead battlecruiser tried to scramble, but too late. Our first railgun salvo hit it midsection, splitting the ship in 2. No fancy energy weapons, just pure kinetic death. Panic spread. They fired back, but our cloak had masked their targeting locks. Their beams scorched empty space. We gutted their second cruiser in under 2 minutes. By the time we closed with the flagship, the Growl were screaming surrender codes. Not that it mattered. We'd all read the orders. No mercy. Not this time. When the last ship broke apart, we sent one broadcast across open Council channels. This is Earth. We will no longer be prey. And that's when the real storm started. Within hours, Council fleets began moving. Not in support, in fear. Earth had just unveiled a ship no primitive world should have. A weapon that could challenge their fragile balance. Now they want us disarmed, investigated, controlled. But men like me, we didn't build Leviathan to be controlled. We built her for war. The bridge was cold. Metal bulkheads, dim lighting, and the hum of a reactor, running hotter than anything allowed under Council law. I stood in the command chair of Leviathan, watching the last Growl wreckage drift across the black. The battle had lasted barely an hour. After years of building her in secret, Leviathan had finally bared her teeth, and the galaxy had seen it. But I knew this was just the beginning. Status, I barked. My XO, Commander Burke, an old-school spacer with a burn-scarred jaw, scanned the hollow displays. All GRA targets destroyed. No damage sustained. Reactor holding steady. He paused. But we've got multiple Council interceptors inbound. Fast. Of course they couldn't ignore this. Earth had just committed an act of defiance no Council race would tolerate. Worse, we'd proven we had teeth. How long until intercept? I asked. First wave 20 minutes. More behind them. I nodded grimly. We weren't ready for a full Council fleet. Not yet. Leviathan was powerful, but alone. No support ships, no fleets to back us. Just a skeleton crew and one ship against the galaxy. And there was one more problem. The politicians back home. The so-called Terran Council. A bunch of spineless bureaucrats had already started panicking. My comms officer handed me an encrypted transmission from Earth's capital. I knew the voice before it even played. High Chancellor Monroe, the softest man in the solar system. Commander Cole, this is an unauthorized military action. You are ordered to power down Leviathan and submit to Council inspection. Do not engage further. I laughed low and bitter. Ordered. Where was Monroe when the Growl fleet was burning our colonies? Where were the Council inspectors when Earth's miners were being sold as cattle on syndicate markets? Cut the feed, I said. If they want this ship, they can come take it. Burke grunted approval. Most of the men on board shared my view. We'd spent too many years building Leviathan to hand her over to a bunch of weak-kneed diplomats. The question now was simple. Fight or run? Burke leaned over. We could cloak again. Burn dark through the asteroid belt. Lose them. I shook my head. And then what? Run forever? They'll hunt us down piece by piece. No, it's time to send a message. He smiled. My kind of thinking. The crew prepped for intercept. Weapons systems cycled hot. Railguns loaded. The torpedo bays, old tech, brutal but effective, spun up. I keyed open a fleet-wide channel. Crew of Leviathan, you know what's coming. The Council won't stop. They want this ship in pieces. They want Earth under their boot. You've all got a choice. If you want out, you've got 5 minutes to evac. No judgment. No one moved. Not a single man. That's why I'd chosen them. Not the best on paper, but the hardest. Veterans who'd seen what the Council really was. Men with scars. Men with reasons. I nodded once. Then we fight. 20 minutes later, the first Council ships appeared. 6 interceptors, sleek, fast, built for patrols and intimidation. Not slugging matches. But their captains didn't know what they were dealing with. They hailed us on open bands. Unknown Terran vessel. You are ordered to surrender and power down all systems. This is your final warning. Burke looked at me. I gave a sharp nod. Our comms officer sent one reply. Come and get us. The Council ships advanced in formation. Shields up. They still thought they could scare us. But Leviathan wasn't some orbital platform or outdated freighter. Fire. Our forward railguns lit the black. Hypersonic slugs tore through space. The lead interceptor's shields crumpled on impact. One shot, one kill. The others panicked, scattering. Too late. Our torpedoes tracked them. Old-school warheads with dumb AI that couldn't be spoofed. 2 more interceptors vanished in fireballs. The rest fled. Cowards. The vaunted Council Navy running from one Terran ship. But I knew better than to celebrate. That was just the first wave. Bigger ships were coming. The Council would escalate. They always did. And the political knives would be out back on Earth. 2 hours later, we got word a full Council battle group inbound. Heavy cruisers, carriers, the real muscle. I gathered the senior officers in the ready room. The mood was grim, but hard. Burke spoke first. We can't win a straight fight against that fleet. Not yet. I nodded. Agreed. But we can't run either. If we disappear, Earth's finished. The Council will slap sanctions, blockade us, maybe worse. Then what? Asked one of the gunnery chiefs. We stand and die. I shook my head. Number, we fight smart. Leviathan had one more trick. A prototype FTL skip drive. Not standard jump tech. Risky as hell. Untested in combat. But capable of a short hop micro jump inside a system. We used the skip. Hit their fleet from unexpected angles. Take out their carriers first. Force them to back off. It was a gamble. The skip drive could overload. We could end up in deep space or inside a planet. but sitting still was a death sentence. Burke grinned. I like it. Punch him where it hurts. As the battle group entered range, Leviathan's reactor ramped up. The whole ship vibrated with raw power. Crew strapped in, weapons hot. I stood on the bridge, watching the fleet close. 30 ships, more than enough to kill us, if they could catch us. Execute, skip, space twisted. The stars bent, then snapped back. We reappeared inside the enemy formation, right behind their lead carrier. Fire all tubes. Torpedoes launched in a spread. The carrier's point defense tried to react. Too slow. Explosions rippled across its hull. We skipped again. Another position. More railgun shots. Another council cruiser crippled. In under 15 minutes, we'd sown chaos. The enemy formation was in disarray. Ships colliding. Comms jammed. Captains shouting over each other. But the skip drive was overheating. One more jump could fry it. I made the call. Target flagship. All forward batteries. We skipped one last time, straight toward the council flagship. A massive dreadnought bristling with guns. They didn't expect us to charge head-on. Our railguns fired point blank. Slugs tore into the flagship's bridge tower. Fires spread. The dreadnought drifted dead in space. The rest of the fleet pulled back. They'd had enough. On the bridge, Burke exhaled hard. They won't forget this. No, I said quietly. They'll be back in force. But we'd made our point. Earth wasn't a colony anymore. We had power and the will to use it. Now came the hard part. Politics, reprisals. The Council wouldn't take this humiliation lightly. And the Terran Council, well, Monroe and his ilk would be plotting already, trying to sell us out to save their skins. I looked out at the stars. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. The galaxy had seen Leviathan, the weak worlds, the client races. They'd start asking questions, start dreaming of defiance, and the Council would panic. Good. It was about time someone burned their pretty little order to the ground. We didn't return to Earth right away. Would have been suicide. Every Council sensor array from Jupiter to the Belt would be hunting us now. Instead, I ordered Leviathan into a deep shadow orbit beyond Pluto, under the ecliptic plane, dark space where the Council's standard sweeps wouldn't reach. For the moment, we were ghosts again, but I knew we couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, they'd triangulate our position, and worse, back on Earth, the knives were already out. I patched into one of our black market comm relays, tech stolen from the syndicates, and tapped an encrypted line to a contact planetside. John Teller, ex-military intelligence, now a ghost in the Terran Council's bureaucracy. One of the few men left I trusted. His face appeared on the display, older, more gaunt than I remembered. Eyes ringed with fatigue. Jackson, Christ, you really did it. I gave a grim nod. What's the fallout? He exhaled hard. You're public enemy number 1. The Council's gone into emergency session. Monroe's screaming for your head, claims you acted alone, rogue agent, unsanctioned warship, all of it. Of course, the bastard was trying to save his own skin. And the Council worlds? I asked. Split. Teller said the core worlds want blood. They're calling for immediate sanctions, blockade, forced inspections, maybe worse. But some of the client worlds they're watching. Curious. Afraid. You lit a fire, Jackson. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. But then his expression darkened. There's more. You've got a leak. Someone high up tipped the Council off about Leviathan's reactor core, the Mark 7 prototype. That's their real fear. They're calling it a destabilizing threat to galactic peace. I swore under my breath. The Mark 7 was the heart of the ship, a black reactor decades ahead of anything the Council had. If they knew about it, they'd stop at nothing to seize or destroy us. Any idea who leaked it? I asked. Teller's jaw tightened. Someone in Monroe's inner circle. I've got suspects. But there's worse news. Monroe is petitioning the Council for authorization to send a Terran strike team after you. He's trying to prove Earth can self-pol and avoid outside intervention. I laughed, bitter. Self-police? The man couldn't even order a fleet to defend the Belt colonies. Now he wanted to take down the one ship that actually protected Earth. Let him come, I said coldly. But if he sends anyone, they'd better be ready to die. Teller's eyes flickered with something like approval. Be careful, Jackson. You're not just fighting the Council now. You're fighting your own planet's leadership. I nodded once. I always knew it would come to this. After the call, I gathered my senior officers in the briefing room. The air was heavy, everyone knowing we were moving past the point of no return. Burke stood with arms crossed. So now we've got council fleets and our own government gunning for us. Correct, I said. And we're not ready for a sustained fight. Not yet. What's the plan? One of the weapons officers asked. I brought up a system map on the holo. One location blinked in red. Xerxes Station. A forgotten mining hub in the outer belt. Unofficial, off-grid. Run by independent smugglers, ex-militia. Anyone who'd been burned by the council. We resupply there, I said. Fuel, munitions, intel, and maybe allies. A few skeptical looks around the room. Xerxes was dangerous territory, full of cutthroats and mercs. But sometimes the devils you knew were better than the so-called civilized council lapdogs. We're not looking to make friends, I continued. We're looking to make waves. If word of Leviathan spreads there, the right ears will hear it, and the wrong ones too. Burke gave a slow grin. About time we kicked over the anthill. The journey to Xerxes took 12 hours on a cold burn, cloak active. We stayed dark the whole way, running silent. Every few hours we'd catch a distant ping, council scouts sweeping the system, but none came close. When Xerxes finally loomed on the nav screen, it looked exactly as I remembered. A ragged cluster of linked asteroids, jury-rigged docking arms, old ore haulers turned habitats. No flags, no allegiances, just survival. As we approached, a grizzled voice crackled over local comms. Unknown vessel, you're in restricted space. State your business. I keyed the mic. This is Leviathan. We're here to trade. A long pause, then grudging amusement. Well, heard about you. Half the sector's talking. Dock at Bay 4. No funny business. We eased in. Docking clamps latched on with a shudder. I took a strike team with me. Full armor, sidearms visible. Xerxes wasn't the kind of place you walked around unarmed. The station air was thick with smoke and recycled oxygen. The docking bay was watched by half a dozen rough-looking guards, X by their gear. They eyed us wearily, but didn't interfere. Our contact was waiting in the shadows. Merrick, old pirate lord, one-time rival and occasional ally of convenience. Bald, scarred, eyes sharp as razors. He smirked when he saw me. Jackson Cole didn't think you had the balls to show up here after what you pulled. I'm not here to make friends, Merrick. I'm here for fuel and information. His smile widened. You've got both. For a price. I tossed him a data chit. Encrypted council credits siphoned from the wrecked Growl fleet. Merrick checked it satisfied. Word is the council's in a frenzy. They're rallying fleets offering bounties. And Monroe, that little worm has put a price on your head so big, half the bounty hunters in the outer systems are sniffing around. I nodded. No surprise there. But there's more, Merrick added, voice dropping lower. Some of the client worlds, they're watching quietly. Some are tired of council taxes, tired of being ruled like second-ass citizens. Your little stunt gave them hope. I leaned in. Names? I want names. Merrick's grin was cold. You'll have them, but be careful. The council's already moving to crush any talk of rebellion. They've sent agents to the fringe worlds, Black Ops assassins. They'll silence anyone too vocal. I straightened. Then it's time we got louder. Back aboard Leviathan. I called a war council. The path was clear now. We couldn't just fight defensively. We had to strike first. Phase 2, I told the crew. We hit council supply lines, disrupt their fleet movements, and we start broadcasting. Open channels across the fringe worlds. Let them know Earth isn't alone. Burke's grin was wolfish. About damn time. But be warned, I added. We've got a leak. Someone high up knows too much. Trust no one. A cold silence followed. Everyone knew what that meant. The fight wasn't just out there. It was within our own ranks, our own homeworld. But it didn't matter. We'd built Leviathan to be more than a ship. She was a message, a warning. And now the galaxy was listening. 3 days after Xerxes, the war began to turn invisible. We'd crippled a council battle group, sent a message to the fringe colonies, and sparked a fire the politicians couldn't smother. But they were fast learners. Now, they weren't sending fleets. They were sending ghosts. It started with the coded intercepts. Our intelligence officer, Lieutenant Drake, a lean bastard with dead eyes, brought them to me in the war room. Encrypted burst traffic coming off Earth. Commander, High Council clearance. We cracked it. The holo display flickered. Lines of text unspooling. Authorization granted. Operation Nightfall is a go. Priority target Commander Jackson Cole. Objective termination. Secondary. Secure Mark 7 core intact. Use authorized assets. No oversight. Burke swore. They've greenlit a black kill. Drake nodded grimly. More than that, the leak we suspected confirmed. This directive references internal data only accessible at the highest Terran Council levels, which meant one thing. Someone close to Monroe, maybe Monroe himself, had sold us out to the Council's Internal Security Directorate, the Black Armored Enforcers. Killers. No trials, no laws, just execution. Targets? I asked. Drake tapped a few keys. 2 covert teams already dispatched. One en route to Xerxes. Too late. We're gone. Second one headed for Earth orbit. They're planning to ambush you if you try to contact Earth again. I leaned forward. And the core. Drake's face tightened. They want it intact, which means they'll take this ship if they can. I stood. Then we'll make damn sure they can't. But the deeper game was just starting. An hour later, a second message came in. This time from Teller. Urgent. Encrypted. His face appeared on the comms, lined with tension. Jackson, we've got a bigger problem. Internal security isn't just targeting you. They're moving on key fringe colony leaders. Anyone showing sympathy after your broadcast. Quiet arrests. Disappearances. They're trying to strangle the rebellion before it starts. I nodded. Names. Teller sent a data packet. A list of sympathetic governors, trade union leaders, ex-military colony heads, the kind of men who'd rise if given a chance. Some are already gone, Teller said grimly. The others are next unless you move fast. I felt my jaw tighten. The Council wanted a silent galaxy. Fear, submission. They'd raise worlds before letting Earth inspire open rebellion. Where's Monroe in all this? I asked. Teller's eyes darkened. He's playing both sides. Publicly calling for calm, privately signing off on these kill orders. If this continues, the colonies will either cave or explode. Then we give them a third option, I said coldly. Hope. The crew gathered in the briefing room. Tension ran high. They knew the stakes now. We weren't just fighting fleets. We were fighting an invisible enemy. Knives in the dark. I laid out the intel. They're hunting us, hunting our allies. If we sit back, this rebellion dies in its crib. So we go on the offensive. Burke leaned forward. Targets. I brought up the holo map. Black sites. Council Black Ops hubs. We hit them, expose their operations, free our people, and we keep broadcasting. Let the colonies know we're still in the fight. Murmurs of approval. The crew was ready. They hadn't signed on for half measures. But understand this, I added. From this point, there's no going back. We won't be treated as rebels anymore. We'll be terrorists, outlaws. The Council will kill us on sight. Earth's own government will brand us traitors. Burke gave a grim smile. We already were. Our first target was a black site orbiting Vesta, an old mining colony turned covert prison. According to Teller's intel, at least 5 sympathetic leaders were being held there, awaiting extraction by internal security, which meant torture, disappearance, or worse. We couldn't let that happen. Leviathan emerged from cloak in the asteroid field, running silent. The prison hub was lightly defended. The Council didn't expect a direct assault. Perfect. We launched a shock team. Burke led them. 20 of our best. They breached the station in a hard burn, cutting through the outer hull with plasma torches. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The internal security troops weren't ready for veterans who'd fought growl boarding actions. Close quarters, brutal, efficient. Within 15 minutes, the station was ours. We freed the prisoners, battered, tortured, but alive. Among them was Governor Rail, a hard-nosed ex-colonel from the Outer Rim. He gripped my hand with surprising strength when I met him in the med bay. "You mad bastard," he rasped. "They told us Earth would never fight back." I looked him in the eye. "We are now." He grinned through bloodied teeth. Then I'm with you. And there are others. Exactly what I needed. Leaders, with spine. The strike made waves. We broadcast the raid footage across fringe channels. The image of Leviathan hovering above Vesta's prison, her guns bared, became a symbol overnight. Within 12 hours, fringe colonies were rioting. Council outposts burned. Freighters refused council inspections. And the kill orders escalated. Teller sent another warning. Internal security has doubled its bounty on your head. They're moving elite hunter-killer teams into the system, and Monroe is now publicly calling you a rogue warlord threatening Earth's stability. I laughed coldly. Stability. He never gave a damn about Earth. But the game was sharpening. The more we hit, the more desperate the Council became, and desperate enemies made mistakes. Then came the betrayal. We intercepted a Council courier drone near Siri, a routine intel sweep, but the data we pulled chilled my blood. A secret meeting had been scheduled. Terran Council envoys and Council internal security aboard a neutral station in the Kuiper Belt. The agenda terms for Earth's total surrender. In exchange for Earth's autonomy, Monroe's government had agreed to hand over Leviathan and me, alive if possible, dead if necessary. My officers stared at the intercepted file in stunned silence. Burke was the first to speak. He's selling us out, selling Earth out. I nodded slowly. I always knew he would. Drake's voice was hard. We can't let that meeting happen. If they seal that deal, every colony that's with us will be crushed. I looked at the map. The neutral station, small but heavily shielded, defended by mercs, a hard target. Perfect. We intercept, I said. We crash that meeting publicly. Let the galaxy see what Monroe really is. Burke's grin was savage. Now we're talking. The crew prepped for war. Every man knew this would be the moment. We either shattered the Council's narrative or died. I stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide by as Leviathan burned for the Kuiper station. The crew was silent, focused, hard. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival, about truth, about showing every enslaved colony, every beaten world that humanity still had teeth. And when we hit that station, the galaxy would know. The Kuiper station was a relic, an old corporate outpost from back when Megacorp still tried to exploit the deep system. Now it served as neutral ground for the scum who didn't want official eyes on their business. Black market deals, assassins for hire, smuggling routes, and apparently treason. Our intercept said Monroe's delegation would dock there in 12 hours. The Council's Internal Security Directorate would be waiting. They'd sign the deal, trade Leviathan and me for Earth's protected status, meaning Earth would be a vassal world, permanently under Council leash. That couldn't happen. We burned in silent, cloaked. No signals, no lights. Leviathan was a ghost again, but the mood aboard was heavier than I'd ever felt. Everyone knew this wasn't just another raid. If we failed here, Earth would be finished. And not from an enemy fleet, from our own damn government. I stood in the war room, the leadership team assembled. Burke, Drake, Ryle, and a few trusted officers. The station is shielded, Drake began. We can't punch through with railguns without risking the delegates we're trying to expose. Then we go in direct, Burke said. Boarding assault face to face. I nodded. Exactly. This time we don't cloak in shadows. We let them see us. Let them know who's coming. Ryle grinned. A bold play. I like it. But Drake looked grim. Intel says internal security has brought Black Guard operatives, Tier 1 assassination teams. If we board, it's going to get bloody fast. I looked each man in the eye. We knew this wasn't going to be a clean war. I said, they brought it to us. We finish it. No one flinched. That's why they were here. 6 hours out, we dropped cloak at full burn. Let the Council see us coming. Let Monroe sweat in his polished suit. Kuiper Station's defenses lit up. Point batteries, interceptor drones. Not enough to stop Leviathan, but enough to announce our arrival. Broadcast on all channels, I ordered. Burke opened the mic. This is Commander Jackson Cole of Leviathan. Terran traders aboard Kuiper Station. You are now exposed. We are coming. Any who stand in our way will be treated as enemy combatants. Surrender now, or face the consequences. Docking was brutal. We rammed one of the outer ports, sealed mag clamps, and cut through with breaching teams. Burke led the first wave. Full armor, pulse rifles, no quarter. Inside was chaos. Mercenaries scrambled to respond, but they weren't ready for trained veterans moving with lethal precision. First corridor secured in minutes. Second cleared with grenades. Then the Black Guards hit us. They came out of the smoke. Black armor, no insignia, moving like ghosts. No shouting, no mercy. Just cold, efficient killing. Burke's team took casualties fast. 2 down in the first exchange. But we pushed harder. I led the second wave myself. Couldn't let my men bleed without me. Pulse fire cracked in the confined corridors. Flashbangs blinded. Smoke filled the air. It was close, brutal fighting. Blades at times when ammo ran dry. I killed 2 Black Guards myself. One with a sidearm shot through the visor. One with a knife to the throat. No hesitation, no time for hesitation. Finally, we reached the core conference hall. Reinforced doors, automated turrets. Internal security wasn't taking chances. Demo charge, I ordered. Minutes later, the door blew inward with a thunderclap. We stormed through, and there they were. Monroe, pale, sweating, flanked by 2 of his pet counselors. Across from them, Internal Security's black-clad director, Kyle, thin, sharp-featured, eyes dead as space. Kale's guards moved fast, but not fast enough. 2 cut down in the first volley. The rest froze, outgunned. I stepped forward, rifle raised. "Stand down," I ordered. "This meeting is over." Monroe's face was ashen. "Cole, you don't understand. This was for Earth's protection." "Protection?" I spat. "You were signing away our freedom, trading us for your own power." Kyle's voice was like ice. "You've just declared war on the Council itself." I smiled coldly. "I did that when I launched Leviathan. This is just the next step." We secured the hall, pulled every data node, broadcast the entire meeting feed, leave across open channels. The galaxy would see Monroe's betrayal, would see the Council's backroom deals. Ryle's Comtech confirmed it. "Sir, feeds are active. Fringe colonies are picking it up. Terran citizens too. Good. Now, there was no hiding, but the fight wasn't done. Kale triggered a failsafe, a station self-destruct. We had less than 10 minutes before the whole place blew. I grabbed Monroe by the collar. "You're coming with us," I snarled. "Time you faced your people," he was babbling excuses, but I didn't listen. We fought our way back to the docks, shooting through waves of panicked mercs and more blackguards. The whole station shook as charges began detonating. By the time we reached Leviathan, the outer hull of Kuiper was already venting atmosphere. We blasted free as the station erupted in a fireball, wreckage spinning into the black. Monroe sat in the brig now, stripped of his finery, face pale. Burke looked at him through the glass. "What do we do with him?" I stared hard at the man who'd sold us out, who'd nearly sold Earth itself. "Not yet," I said. "First, we show him what the galaxy now knows. Then we let Earth decide." And Earth was already deciding. Our feeds lit up. Protests in the streets. Council embassies burning on fringe colonies. More ships refusing Council transit. Word was spreading fast. Earth had a ship the Council feared, and her leaders were no longer trusted. But now we had a new problem, Drake reported in grimly. "Council fleet elements are massing near Saturn Heavy. They know you exposed them. Now they're coming in force." I looked at the holo map. The war was no longer shadow games. It was here. It was open. And we would not back down. The Council wasn't wasting time. Within 36 hours of the Kuiper station broadcast, they'd masked a fleet bigger than anything Earth had ever faced. 30 capital ships, carrier groups, dreadnoughts with enough firepower to erase half the solar system. They weren't pretending anymore. No diplomatic missions, no sanctions, just annihilation. Our feeds picked up their transmission, blunt and unapologetic. "Terran vessel Leviathan and associated rebel forces, you are hereby designated enemies of the Galactic Order. You will stand down and submit to immediate inspection and decommission. Failure to comply will result in total military action against Earth and her colonies." I stood on Leviathan's bridge, arms crossed, watching the Council fleet array itself near Saturn, like a steel wall, like an execution squad. Burke stood beside me, his face grim. They're serious this time. Good, I said. So are we. Earth's cities were already in chaos. Protests had turned violent. Government buildings were torched. Monroe's public betrayal had ignited a fire Earth's council couldn't put out. Martial law had been declared in several regions, but the old security forces were divided. Half of them had deserted, unwilling to fight for a regime that had sold them out. And in the colonies, riots, uprisings, council tax ships being boarded and looted, entire mining outposts declaring independence. The galaxy was unraveling thread by thread, and Leviathan was the spark that had lit the match. I called a war council in the main strategy room. Teller joined us via encrypted link, broadcasting from a hidden node on Earth. His face looked like he hadn't slept in days. Monroe's people are finished, he reported. There's no government anymore. Not really. Powers fractured. The military split down the middle. Half the army siding with the protesters, the other half's frozen. No orders, no clear leadership. I nodded. And the people? They're scared, angry, and waiting. Teller leaned forward. They're waiting for someone to show them this isn't the end. Burke gave a rough laugh. That'd be us then. Teller's gaze sharpened. If you win, Jackson, if you can stop that fleet, Earth won't go back to the way it was. You'll have to lead. They'll look to you. I didn't answer. I wasn't thinking about politics. I was thinking about the 30 ships sitting out there like vultures, ready to tear us apart. But he was right. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about what came after. We couldn't beat the Council fleet in a straight fight. Even Leviathan couldn't face those numbers head-on. Not with our skeleton crew. Not with Earth caught in the crossfire. But we didn't need to beat them. We just needed to bleed them bad enough, hard enough, publicly enough, that they thought twice. Because one thing the Council couldn't afford was the galaxy seeing them lose, seeing them bleed. Their control depended on fear, the kind of fear only unbroken dominance could inspire. Break that even a little, and the whole empire would start to crack. I stood before the crew in the main hangar bay, armor suited, helmet tucked under my arm. Every man stared back at me, hard-eyed, silent, ready. You know what's out there, I said. You know what they plan to do to Earth? To us. They think they can crush us and walk away clean. I let the silence sit heavy for a moment. They're wrong. I stepped forward, voice rising. They forgot what it means to fight a human who's got nothing left to lose. They forgot who we are. A murmur ran through the crowd. Grim approval, the kind that grows in men who've already accepted they might not see another sunrise. They'll send waves, dreadnoughts, carriers, fighters. Let them come. We'll tear the heart out of them. One ship, one shot at a time. A roar met my words. Hard fists hitting armor plates. The sound of men who weren't ready to die quietly. We moved fast. I split the ship's strike teams, half manning Leviathan's rail batteries and torpedo tubes, half outfitting our own countermeasures. Decoys, jammers, old-school tricks from wars the Council had forgotten how to fight. And we prepped the Mark 7 reactor's overcharge systems. As a last resort, we could spike it, unleash a radiation pulse that would fry any ship within 100 kilometers. It would destroy Leviathan too, but if it came to it, we'd take as many of the bastards with us as we could. The Council fleet moved. They came in waves. 6 carriers escorted by fast attack cruisers. Fighters spewed from their decks. A black cloud of death. Leviathan surged forward. No cloak this time. No hiding. We fired first. Railguns tearing into the fighter wave. Torpedoes slamming into cruiser hulls. The first Council carrier took a hit amidships. Its shield cracked like glass, and fire bloomed from its hangar decks. But they kept coming. Fighters swarmed us, hammering at our armor. Rail slugs punched through our outer hull. The bridge shuddered with every hit. Burke was shouting fire orders. Drake was tracking enemy targeting patterns. And I watched it all. Calm. Cold. This was war the old way. Close. Personal. Merciless. Leviathan spun and danced, her railguns and point defense lasers roaring. We gutted a second carrier, watched it list and explode. Its reactors breached. But we were bleeding too. Hull fractures, fires on decks 6 and 7, casualties mounting. Still we fought. Still we killed. 3 hours in, the Council fleet broke ranks. Panic rippled through their formation. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. One ship wasn't supposed to do this. But we weren't just a ship. We were Earth's rage made metal, and the galaxy was watching. We broadcast live feeds from the battle, images of council ships burning, of Leviathan bloodied but unbowed, of humans refusing to die easy. Fringe colonies picked up the signal. Riots exploded into revolutions. Council outposts fell. Even some core worlds started asking questions. And the council fleet, they pulled back, retreating, humiliated. They left wreckage behind their own and ours. But we still floated. We still lived on the bridge, bloodied and smoke-streaked. I stood over the comms. Burke looked at me. They're running. I nodded. For now. He gave a savage grin. You know what this means, right? I did. The council would come back, bigger, angrier, desperate. But Earth wasn't alone anymore. Messages were pouring in. Colonies pledging allegiance. Core world factions breaking away. Even some fringe system fleets asking to join us. The galaxy wasn't afraid anymore. And I knew, deep in my bones, that we weren't done fighting. Not by a long shot. I turned to the crew, battered, but unbroken. We just made history, I said. Now, let's make a future. Victory should have tasted sweeter. But the air aboard Leviathan was thick with smoke, blood, and the sharp, bitter scent of burned wiring. Half the ship's systems were down or limping. Hull breaches patched with temporary seals. Fires still smoldered in the lower decks. We'd survived the council's onslaught, barely. And survival in war is never free. The casualty reports rolled in. 53 dead, over 100 wounded. Men I knew, men I fought alongside. Men whose only crime was believing Earth wasn't something to be bartered away. I stood in the medbay, staring at the rows of bodies, each zipped into black bags, faces I refused to forget. Burke stood beside me, silent, jaw tight. They gave us the only thing that mattered, I said quietly. Time. He nodded. What now? I didn't answer. Not yet. A day later, the galaxy began to crack. The feeds were overflowing. Footage of the battle over Saturn had gone viral, broadcast by sympathetic colonies, hacked into core world networks, even leaked onto council channels. They tried to suppress it, but it was too late. Everyone had seen it. Leviathan, alone against an empire, wounded, bleeding, but unbroken. Earth's battered cities erupted into a new kind of chaos. Not fear, not despair, but uprising. The Terran Council was finished. Monroe's supporters were arrested or fled into hiding. The power vacuum was immediate and dangerous. But something unexpected happened. The people didn't fall into anarchy. They rallied. Veterans formed citizen militias. Workers' unions seized council offices. Local leaders, men and women with no love for the old regime, stepped up. And Earth, for the first time in a generation, began to stand on its own feet. Teller's face appeared on the comms. He looked better, like a man who finally had some fight left in him. Jackson, he said, it's happening. Earth's declared independence from the council officially. No more diplomats. No more puppet governments. I nodded. And Monroe gone. Dead, probably. His transport tried to run a blockade over Luna. Didn't make it. A fitting end for a traitor. Burke grunted. The real question is what happens next. Teller's smile was grim. The colonies are following Earth's lead. Mars declared 2 hours ago. They're out. So did Titan, Europa, even the fringe worlds. They're not just pulling out. They're calling for something bigger. What? I asked. Teller leaned in. A union? An alliance? Free worlds? Independent of the council? Burke gave a low whistle. And they'll expect us to lead it. I shook my head. They'll expect more than that. They'll expect us to defend it. We couldn't do it alone. Leviathan was strong, but she was one ship. Against the full weight of a crumbling, desperate council, we'd be a martyr at best. We needed numbers, ships, soldiers, allies who believed this was their fight too. And that meant going beyond Earth. A council was called, not the kind the old government used to hold in marble chambers with scripted speeches and staged media events. This was raw, real. Delegates from Earth's fractured governments, the colonies, fringe world leaders, military commanders, all gathered in a fortified station orbiting Mars. Neutral ground, no flags, no council spies. Burke and I arrived aboard Leviathan, her hull scarred, but her guns ready. A silent statement. The meeting hall was brutal as steel and stripped functionality. No luxury, no comfort. Just men and women who knew survival wasn't a right. It was something you fought for with your teeth bared and your fists bloody. Governor Ryle stood to open the meeting. His voice was rough, but carried the weight of a man who'd bled for his convictions. "The council calls us rebels, traitors, terrorists," he said. "I say we are free men, and I say it's time we stopped running." Murmurs of agreement, tension thick in the air. He turned, gesturing toward me. "We are here because one ship, one crew, stood against an empire. Commander Jackson Cole Leviathan." All eyes turned to me, expectant, waiting. I stepped forward, armor worn, voice steady. "I didn't come here to make speeches," I began. "I came here because the old way is dead. The council doesn't rule by consent. They rule by fear, by force, by selling us out piece by piece, until nothing's left but slaves and corpses." A few nods, grim faces. I pressed on. "They're weak now, bleeding, but they won't stay that way. They'll rally. They'll send more fleets, more assassins, more propaganda, and they'll burn every world that dares defy them." Silence heavy. "We need to be ready. We need to fight smart, hard, together." I looked around, locking eyes with every man and woman in the room. "We start now. A new alliance built on freedom, on strength, on the simple truth that we will not be ruled by fear again." I paused, letting it settle. "But hear me when I say this. If we do this, there's no going back. No negotiations. No compromise. The council will never forgive us. Never stop hunting us." Burke leaned in, voice low and hard. "Then we make sure they never get the chance." A ripple ran through the room, and then one by one the delegates stood. Ryle first, then the Mars military commander, the Europa trade union head, even the governor of Titan, a man once considered a council loyalist. They stood not for a man, not for a ship, but for an idea. An idea that maybe, just maybe, humanity didn't have to kneel anymore. The Terran Free Alliance was born that day. No fanfare, no parades, just men and women who signed a charter with blood on their hands and steel in their hearts. And at the heart of it, Leviathan, not a symbol, not a relic, a weapon, a promise. Within days, the Alliance had its first fleet, cobbled together from colony defense ships, hijacked council patrol boats, retrofitted freighters turned gunships, a ragtag armada. But it was a start. Earth's shipyards, long dormant, roared back to life. Every moon, every rock that could build warships, started laying keys. Weapons factories worked triple shifts. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. The council responded the only way it knew how. Blockades, threats, sanctions. But this time, Earth didn't bow. Weeks later, I stood on Leviathan's bridge as the first new Alliance ships joined our formation. Fresh hulls gleaming, captains untested but hungry. Burke stood beside me, arms crossed. "It's not much yet." "No," I agreed. "But it's enough," he grinned. "Enough to make the council bleed." I smiled cold and sharp. Enough to make them fear. And fear, I knew, was a hell of a weapon. We weren't fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting to win. It didn't take long for the council to respond. 2 months after the birth of the Terran Free Alliance, the council declared full-scale war. No more political games. No more covert assassins. No more backroom deals. They were coming to finish it one last time. Their message was blunt, broadcast across all known systems. The Terran rebellion will be crushed. Earth will be pacified. The so-called alliance will be dismantled. Resistance is futile. But the galaxy wasn't listening anymore. They were watching. They'd seen Leviathan survive the unthinkable. They'd seen Earth refuse to kneel. And the Council's mask of invincibility was cracked. Now it was time to shatter it. We got word from our deep scouts. A Council Grand Fleet had gathered beyond Neptune's orbit. Nearly 60 ships, flagships, super dreadnoughts. The council had thrown every asset they could scrape together, hoping for a decisive blow. They mean to end us here and now, Burke said, reading the latest reports. Wipe Earth clean. Kill the Alliance in its crib. I nodded. And if they win, they will. I called the command staff into War Council. The hollow map showed the odds. Not good. Our fleet had grown, but we were still outnumbered nearly 3-1. But we didn't need to win by numbers. We needed to break their will. The plan was simple, brutal, dangerous, but our best shot. Leviathan would lead the strike force, punching into the heart of the Council formation. Our new Alliance ships would flank, targeting support vessels, supply ships, and critical systems. We'd aim for their flagship, a new dreadnought called Judicator. If we could kill their command corps live on open channels, the psychological blow would be worth more than 1,000 ships. And if we failed, Earth would burn. The night before the battle, I walked Leviathan's decks. Wounded men and green recruits alike made final checks. Engineers swarmed the reactors. Gunnery crews slept beside their weapons. These weren't soldiers anymore. They were warriors. They knew what was coming, and they were ready to meet it head-on. Burke found me near the forward observation blister. The stars beyond were cold and sharp, uncaring. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and half our fleets barely held together, he said quietly. I glanced at him. That ever stopped us before? He grinned. Hell no. Then came the call. The enemy fleet was on the move. Burn signatures rising, course locked on Earth. No negotiation, no stalling. They were coming, and so were we. The battle began at 0400 Alliance Standard Time. Leviathan dropped cloak at the head of the fleet, leading a spear thrust straight through Neptune's rings. Debris scattered. Council picks scrambled. Too late. We hit their outer screen first. Railguns tearing through light cruisers. Torpedoes took out escort frigates. But then the real fight began. The main council line opened up. Beams of hard light, plasma lances, fields of mass kinetic fire. Space lit up like Hell's own forge. Leviathan took hits. Armor plates cracked. Fires broke out. But she held. Bloodied but unbroken. The Alliance fleet swarmed in, ragged, makeshift, but burning with fury. Council ships started to falter, not used to fighting enemies who didn't break and run. Then we saw her Judicator, at the heart of their formation, a beast of a ship, heavily shielded, bristling with guns, the Council's pride. Burke slammed a fist onto the tactical console. That's our kill, sir. Full burn, I ordered. All batteries, all hands. Leviathan surged forward through a gauntlet of fire. Fighters swarmed us. Frigates tried to block our path and died for it. We fired everything. Railguns, torpedoes, pulse batteries. One of Judicator's escorts exploded in a chain reaction. But we were bleeding too. 2 decks gone. Reactor output down 20%. Casualties mounting. Still we drove forward. Still we refused to break. Finally, we closed to knife fight range. Judicator's shields flared, but they couldn't stop our forward batteries. Our main railgun charged, a full power shot. Burke's voice rang out. Target locked, fire. The slug ripped through space, slammed into Judicator's forward quarter. Armor peeled away. Secondary explosions rocked her spine. But she wasn't dead yet. Her guns roared back. A direct hit to Leviathan's dorsal array. Fires everywhere. The ship groaned, systems flickering. Burke looked to me. We've got one more shot in us. I nodded once. Make it count. Our reactor surged dangerously close to overload. The Mark 7 pushing past safety limits. One last railgun charge. One last hope. We aimed for the bridge and fired. The slug punched clean through Judicator's command tower. On every open channel the feed cut, and then flickered back, showing the Council flagship dead in space, burning, drifting. Their fleet hesitated. Then it fractured. Without leadership, without command, they broke. Some retreating, some surrendering, some running for deep space. The Council's grand fleet shattered. Leviathan hung in space, barely alive. Fires raged. Casualties were high. Half the ship was dark, but we had won. Burke stood beside me on the bridge, bleeding from a gash over one eye. Hell of a fight, sir. I nodded. And just the start. The Council was broken, but not dead. Core worlds were fracturing, revolts rising. the old order crumbling. But they'd be back. New fleets, new strategies, and we'd be ready. As the Alliance fleet gathered around Leviathan, battered but victorious, messages flooded in. Worlds declaring independence, colonies offering aid, militias rising. Earth had not only survived, it had led. I stood before the battered crew of Leviathan, armor scorched, voice steady. "We've done the impossible," I said. "We've shown the galaxy that humans don't kneel, that we don't break." I looked around at the men and women who had made history. "This isn't over," I said. "The fight is just beginning. But today, we won." A roar met my words. Defiant, raw, human. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would we. Leviathan turned toward Earth, her scars a badge of honor. Ahead lay war, rebuilding, and a future forged in the fire of rebellion. But we would meet it head on,